Thank you again for joining us for Ask Mayor Miller with the Center for Collaborative Journalism. We've been gathering questions from the public and from our media partners. We wanted to ask you about the money that Macon-Bibb County will be getting as a result of the most recent stimulus for the coronavirus. Do you have any idea about how much you're going to get and what may be some of the priorities that you're looking at for spending that money?
Sure. So far, we're still talking with the federal government about how much money we may get. There's been some suggestions that because we're a consolidated government, we'll get both the city and the county portions, which is going to be somewhere around $70 million. As far as having any specific requests for that, I think in general there's probably several concerns that commissioners would like to address, but we're still waiting on the regulations to come from the government to decide how we have to spend that money and what kind of time frame we have to spend that money.
And then what do you think the process will be once you have those parameters in place?
I think once we get our regulations and we review those, we're going to make a proposal to commission on some things that we would like to see it. My understanding is that we'll get the first amount within about 30 to 60 days. We'll have basically a one-year time frame to expend that money, and then we'll get the second half of that money sometime the next year or a year later, and then that needed to be spent by 2024, so you have a little bit more time on that. One of the first things we have to do is make the county whole again, because we have some losses at certain places because of COVID, and we need to shore up our reserves or our money because of the losses that we suffered. The next item we have to do is address the tourism. Many of our museums, the Arts Alliance, the Tubman, the Douglas, Museum of Arts and Sciences, they were forced to close for the majority of the time, and people wasn't traveling, so they were losing money, our Coliseum. So we have some losses there from the hotel motel tax, and I think we need to look at making them whole again because of the money they lost, including Cherry Blossom Festival. So we want to make them whole out of that money because that's part of the purpose, but we also want to give them money to make sure they can jumpstart the next year to make sure that we get back to where we used to be for the tourism. Homelessness is another area that I want to be addressed. We're working on some long-term solutions for that, but we certainly have more people that are affected by COVID that are homeless or lost their homes or may be evicted or have no place to go after the eviction moratorium is over. So one of the buckets they have there is for homelessness. The other thing is for housing. We've had a Blight project in mind for a while. It takes a lot of money to do the Blight remediation and to have housing, but we need more affordable housing here in Macon, and I think that's something that we could team up with Macon Housing Authority and other partners to take care of that need. There's also some infrastructure that the money needs to be used for according to the regulations we've received so far. So we're going to work in cooperation with the Macon Water Authority and other areas that we have in Macon-Bibb County to use some of that money for that. But I think it's a good first step for the government to get that kind of money, but there are restrictions there, and we're going to utilize it. It's going to help our community as a whole get through this pandemic.
Generally, with COVID-19, and now that we're having vaccinations and such, what is kind of the local order or policy concerning COVID-19 and the precautions that we need to take?
Well, we're still above the level that's necessary to wear a mask, or we're still asking everyone to wear the mask according to the mandate. We're still under the governor's executive order, at least now until April the 7th. And we'll take a look at that on April the 7th to see if he extends that, reduces it, and we'll follow accordingly. That executive order is something that allows us not to be complacent. Yes, we have the vaccine, but more people need to get the shot. Yes, the numbers are going down, but we don't know about these other strands that we have there. So we still can't be complacent. We still have to be smart. But I am excited about having the Cherry Blossom Festival. It's one of those things. I think that it's an outdoor event. Almost 100% of the items are outdoor. All the protocols are being taken as far as the safety measures, the distancing, the mask requirement, the temperature, the number of people there. A lot of these are some of these are virtual. So I think if you can be smart about it and still go back to kind of some sense of normalcy. I do know the numbers are dropping. I'm looking forward to hopefully sometime this summer get back to at least 75%, 80% of where we were before COVID.
Any update on your long-term plan for Blight in the county?
Well, we're continuing to move forward. We've been meeting with several partners. We have a group of about 20 that we're meeting on. A few weeks ago, we started out with our residential structure fires. We started out with about 57 homes. In the very beginning, we sent a 10-day letter out, and a couple of them started coming back in about wanting to do their own work. Believe it or not, we only have 37 left out of the 57 that we had. So 20 people, a couple of them took down their own house. So it saved us substantial money by taking down their house. We had several that wants to transfer the property over to the county, free and clear. And then we had a bunch of them that went out to contact our code enforcement director who's monitoring these, and they're getting their licenses for electrical and for building. So they're getting inspections taken care of. So we believe they're going to rehab these properties, and we're excited about that because we haven't had to spend any money yet other than the testing. We've tested all 37 properties for asbestos, and we're getting those responses in each and every day. So we're going to continue to do that. J.T. Rickerson and his office at Code Enforcement has already moved on to the next level. We have 158 homes this time that we're looking at. We're going to go through each and every one of those and determine which one of those meets the nuisance requirement with our council, and then we're going to send those letters out. And we're going to continue rolling this process out by putting them on notice, testing them through the asbestos and lead paint testing, and then starting a demolition order right after that. While all this is going on, we're steadily working on the other 600 that got dropped the last time. During the previous administration, we all know that code enforcement didn't do the best job, and we had 600 houses that fell through the cracks. So the new director and his staff are going through those 600 to get them back up to where we need to be for demolition. We've been working really hard with our tax commissioner, Wade McCord, and having subsequent tax sales. They've been very successful about getting these houses in the hands of people who want to make investments. We made about $200,000 on the last sale, and we have another one coming up soon. This is all going together with a policy that we created to make sure that all the funds from our subsequent tax sales, from the blight tax, from the code violations that we have, all that's going into one fund now so we can have a perpetual fund to do these projects in. So we're working smarter towards blight. We've had great community feedback. We've had people notifying us on a daily basis of houses they consider blighted, and we're putting those on the list and making inspections on those.
Those 158 you mentioned, are they also burned out structures, or are they just another conditions of blight?
Most of those are residential structure fires that we happen at, but we also have some of those that were been in the well for a while through code enforcement that J.T. Rickerson has discovered, and he's added those on the list for consideration as well. We believe that they pose a nuisance to the community and safety and health issue or concern, so we added those to there while we're looking at it, because we started out using all the data we have, and basically we'll take those 158, we'll put those back in the GIS mapping to determine the locations they are, and we're going to continue to focus on the most needy areas.
That is another question. How is it going geographically? We had some concerns about areas off of Emory Highway, Jeffersonville, and Millerfield Road areas. Are there any specific plans to address blight there, or how are you determining where to start?
We started with the data in the residentials. We have a lot of blight in East Macon and Millerfield Road area. We've notated those, so we do have them on our blight list, not the residential fire list. Those are separate, but we're going to be working them at the same time. So what we'll be doing is once we determine how much it's going to cost for this first 57 that we did, that's now 37, we'll get an average price per home to tear down, so we'll know how far we can go and how much money we need. Then we can do an assessment, and perhaps instead of Bibb County doing all the demolition, we can sub some of these out so we can do multiple areas at a time. I do know that Bloomfield is another area of concern we're looking at, and East Macon, as well as Unionville and Pleasant Hill. So those are some of our focus points right now.
You mentioned the subsequent tax sales, but are there other programs where people can buy some of these abandoned houses, or are there any procedures for them to follow to look for available properties for purchase?
Sure. Well, they can contact the Commissioner's office, in particular if we have some homes that are haven't paid their taxes. If you go look at they post them all the time. You can contact the Wade McCord's office and let them know that you're interested in a particular residents that haven't paid their taxes, and they'll put those on that sale and allow you to bid on those. We have a land bank authority that we're going to be beefing up a lot, that we may have some inventory now that we have the land bank. If you have a use for that property and can show that you're going to invest or build on that property or improve it, then that's something that for a nominal fee you can get that home. So we have several opportunities. Some of the money I'm hoping to do under the federal stimulus money is to come up with a revolving loan fund. That revolving loans fund will allow investors to borrow money at a low interest rate to remediate these homes in these neighborhoods. It'll also allow someone in their own neighborhoods that wants to bring their house up to standard to borrow money to repair their own house, so they don't become blighted structures. And this will be a very low interest rate of money that we can keep on a perpetual cycle to do this for a long time. So we want to help people improve their own homes so they don't become blighted. But at the same time, we want to spur new investment in our neighborhoods. So we're going to do these low-interest loans. And we're also going to do an invitation to bid to have several investors or builders come up, and we're going to allow them to build some homes for Macon-Bibb County so we can have affordable housing. So we have great plans in the housing arena. It's going to cover all throughout Macon-Bibb County, but it will be data-driven, and it's going to be specific to areas that need the most improvement right now.
Another one of your big pushes has been this Clean Streets Matter initiative, and I understand that you're now looking into maybe hiring some folks through agencies to supplement the labor force. Can you tell us a little bit about that plan?
Sure. One of the things I noticed when I got in here as mayor is that we had several apartments that were way understaffed. Right now, the Parks and Beautification is down 13 people. It's really hard to do a good job and to serve our community if you don't have 13 people at work each day. So they're 13 short, and we're hiring now. The Public Works Department was 8 short. Solid Waste was about 8 short. So you look at those 3 departments, and you're about 30 people short. But the other time is we have some seasonal work. In the summer when the grass is really growing, we need to be able to cut the grass within a reasonable time, and we can't do that when you're 30 people short. We can't pick up the trash on the side of the road when you're 30 people short. So one of the things I looked at doing is to put out a invitation to bid, and we asked a lot of companies to submit temporary labor. We believe that we can really beef it up during the seasonal time, so we don't have to hire the person throughout 365 days the whole year, pay their insurance, pay their pensions, pay their workers' comp, and pay their taxes on there. We can use some of the temporary agencies that have people that really need to work as well, and we can deal with it. We got 4 that we approved, and we can pull from those. So if the first company doesn't have enough employees, we can move to the second, to the third, or to the fourth, and we can use them as needed. And it will help supplement the labor that we have now, so we do a better job of providing services, but also be more efficient and save us money in the long run.
Another topic that came up at the most recent meeting was the election reforms that are taking place at the state. Where do you come down on that, and is there any role for local government to either advisory or any other way give some input on that?
Well, the local government itself has no role as far as making any decisions that's going to impact. I do think we have an advisory role. We can use our ability to advocate as individuals that are elected by Macon-Bibb County. Many of our commissioners are passionate on both sides of the equation, and they have certain contacts with the local delegation in Atlanta. I've asked them if they're passionate about this in a certain area, if they think they can provide some good talking points, leadership skills to them. Perhaps they reach out to them or get their constituents to do it. As a body, it really doesn't move the needle if you get out there and take a vote one way or the other, because you're not going to change the minds of those with a resolution coming out of the commission. I feel strongly about making sure everybody has the access to vote and the right to vote. I think you can do both. I think personally you can make sure that we have safe and secure elections and also not suppress people's votes. I certainly want everybody to have the right to vote. During my own personal campaign, I reached out a lot to ask people to mail in their ballots, and I was very successful about it. If it hadn't been for some mail-in ballots and me encouraging people that may have been scared in their own homes to get out and vote during the COVID crisis, I certainly wouldn't be here today. So the last thing I want to do is prevent people from voting, but I do think we need to make sure that we protect the integrity of the process, and I do respect people who want to respect the integrity of the process, but at the same time, I don't want this to become a partisan issue where we try to suppress the vote. So I think as individuals, we can use our right and our influence to do such things, but I don't think this commission, no matter what the resolution is going to be, is going to make an impact on what happens in Atlanta this time.
Also, you mentioned your homeless shelter. April 1st is fast approaching, and I know that was the date that the Brookdale Warming Center was set to sunset. What's the update on that?
Well, we've extended that to June the 1st. We have worked an agreement out with the school system that we can stay open until June the 1st. We have met with our partners to see who would be able to participate in the process, including the Salvation Army. We've raised some additional funds. It's going to be time for the county to put some money into that effort. We're very close to a long-term solution, whether at Brookdale or somewhere else, because we don't want this to expire. We don't want to come up on June the 1st now and say it's time to leave. We've had about 300 people come through there, keep about 150, 155 on an average basis there, and we're making a lot of good changes in people's lives. The other thing is, once we know we have a permanent facility, we're going to add some more wraparound services there. We've been talking to case managers, and we also are looking at having several stages throughout the process. We don't want people to come there to abuse the process and just try to save some money and come there and take up a bed space without working on the end game. And when I mean end game, we mean going to housing. So what we're doing now is we're going to set up phases at a permanent center where they can graduate from stage 1, 2 to 3 to 4. And by the time they get to 4, they're going to have a job if they can work, and they're going to have a house or an apartment they can go into. That's the other effort we want to do to provide affordable housing, because we don't want to encourage people to do the right thing and go through our warming center or cooling center if it's the summer without taking the steps they need to do. If it's a veteran, we need to get them the services they need and the financial support they need. If they're on a waiting list, maybe for Section 8 housing, we need to let them know how they can jump through the hoops to get that. Or if there's jobs available for them, perhaps we've asked these temporary agencies, look at our people at the warming center, give them a job making $12 an hour, because that's to pay for that. Allow them to get enough money where they can qualify for some of the other housing that we have, and they'll get priority since they're in the warming center. So I think by the time they get to the 4th stage, we want 150 people to have an opportunity to have a home. And that's the ultimate goal, not just to put a Band-Aid on something to keep someone out of the elements for a couple months, but really to try to help them to maintain the lifestyle that they need to have.
I know you have a whole bunch of other proposals in your quiver. Anything else that you're ready to talk about yet?
We have the event coming up on April the 10th that we've discussed before. We certainly want everybody to shut Macon down and clean up Macon that day. That's going to be one of many that we have this year. We have over 30 now organizations or neighborhood associations who have signed up for that. We believe that's going to be a huge event. We're continuing to push the OLAST. For the first time ever, we've got the OLAST past the House, 162 to 0 vote, and now it's in the Senate Finance Committee. We're working diligently behind the scenes to try to get at least one small change to that and send it back to the House so we can have a final vote and put it on a referendum, hopefully this year. So those are encouraging things that we have. We have several new announcements we'll have probably in the next couple of months on economic development. As you know, those things are kept private because we don't want to discourage it, but businesses are starting to take notice of Macon-Bibb County. We have got many new businesses coming through the state. They've called us and said, look, y'all are becoming a hotbed now. People are really taking notice of how your community is coming together. For the first time, the OLAS 162 to 0. That means every local delegation that we have all voted for it, and that's the first time that's ever happened. So they're starting to take notice of that. They're starting to know that we're business friendly, and we're starting to do those things like coming together on Blight and crime and taking care of some of those liquor stores and moratoriums that we talked about in the beginning. They're taking notice of that. And I'm hearing this all the way from the governor's office to the economic development in the state to other mayors who have called me from all over the state of Georgia asking me how we did this or how we do that or how's this Clean Streets Matter going? How did you do this homeless initiative you have? How can you afford to do this? So it's nice to be the talk of the town a little bit. How did you get this mass vaccination site? I mean, we've tripled the numbers we had in just a short period of time of people getting the vaccination, and that's only going to help us all get back to normalcy as soon as possible. So we're very excited about the initiatives we have going on, and we're very excited about some that may be coming in the near future.